All right, folks, it's the Reformed Rebel, and today's broadcast is from our home of nuptial bliss, and it's been a pretty good week. Right up to the point that I was stupid enough to watch Scot McKnight interview Brian McLaren at the Q Conference. And the title of this interview was awesome. It was Brian McLaren's thoughts on being a heretic. Just my thought, and I realize I'm not Brian McLaren and that I haven't written a bunch of books, but at the point that people are interviewing you about your thoughts on being a heretic, maybe this should be a sign to I'm trying to think of a nice word to put here, and I'm really struggling, people that are reading your books and swallowing the stuff that you're spewing, that you're not orthodox anymore. But there was a moment in the interview for me that I thought was just incredible. I actually had to pause it during this part because I was pretty sure that had I not, that I was going to wind up taking a ball-peen hammer to my Mac because it was the one showing me the lunacy that this guy is trying to pass off as Christianity, or my head was going to explode, and neither of those two options seemed real good, so I went with a third. Anyway, McLaren was talking about how after he wrote his book, Everything Must Change, that these people kept coming up to him and wanting to talk to him about something. And I thought it was intriguing that he said, before he got to this point, that everybody, or apparently there are people, not everyone, there are people that read books like with a checklist. And they need to know what you believe about, A, B, C, and D, you being the author, or they won't listen to what you have to say. And his very next statement was, when I wrote Everything Must Change, I included sections in that book about war, hunger, disease, the environment, and people would come up to me at book signings afterwards, and all they wanted to talk to me about was my atonement theory. Really? His statement here, 25,000 people a day are dying of, and I can't remember what he said it was either disease or hunger, and all you want to talk to me about is my atonement theory. Okay, a couple of thoughts there. First, I don't know why Brian McLaren is surprised that anybody comes to books with a list. Mr. McLaren came to his book with a list. He came with a list of what he thought were important topics for Christianity. Those topics were war, famine, disease, and he's surprised that somebody else comes to it and wonders what he thinks about, atonement theory. And yes, we do want to talk to him about atonement theory, because if there are 25,000 people a day dying from whatever scourge it was that he pointed out, then what you believe about the atoning death of Christ determines what you believe about those people's eternal destinies. And frankly, it's kind of important to know whether or not you believe they're burning in hell, or how they're going to not burn in hell for eternity. But then on the other hand, Brian McLaren is a guy that seems to not believe in hell, where on the other hand, the majority of us that are Orthodox believe that hell's hot and forever's a long time. So I don't understand why he's mocking people for having a list of things that they believe are important, because he has his own list. It's another example of how the supposed tolerance monitors are often the most intolerant people themselves. It just goes further to prove an assertion that I've been making for several years, and so have some friends of mine, that in the end, Brian McLaren's generous orthodoxy is far too generous to be orthodox anymore. And to crib the title of his new book, his new kind of Christianity isn't Christian anymore. Because this man actually believes that he can ground up, reimagine, and totally redefine Christianity, apart from what the church has believed to be central dogmas for 2 millennia. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for people to wake up, open their eyes, and see Mr. McLaren for what he is. He's a wolf wearing a sheep's skin all over his back.